friends. Today in school we're reading The Mitten by Jan Brett, one of my favorite authors and illustrators. An illustrator is somebody who makes the pictures for books. This is a story about a little boy named Nicky who wanted new mittens made of snow white wool. But his grandma, named Baba, didn't want to make him knit mittens out of white wool because she was afraid that if he dropped one in the forest, he would never find it. But Nicky wanted snow white mittens so bad that finally Baba said, okay, and she made him some mittens. After she finished, she said, when you come home, first I will check to see if you're okay, and then I will check to see if you have 2 of your snow white mittens. So off Nicky went into the forest to play, and as soon as he did, he accidentally left one of his mittens behind. Oh no. Just then, a little mole came along. He was tired, and he saw the mitten and burrowed inside. It was cozy and warm, so he decided to stay. Then, who do you think came along? A snowshoe rabbit. And the snowshoe rabbit stopped to admire his winter coat, noticed the mitten, and he saw that it was wiggling. So he poked his head inside and he saw Mr. Mole. And he said, I'm going to come inside and stay warm and cozy too. Mr. Mole didn't think there was enough room, but he moved over and let Mr. Rabbit in. Then, who do you think came along? This guy, Mr. Hedgehog. He was sniffing all along, and he came upon the mitten, and he saw it moving, and he decided to poke his head inside to see who was in there. And he noticed Mr. Mole and Mr. Rabbit, but not being one to argue with a hedgehog, Mr. Rabbit and Mr. Mole let him inside, and they made room for him and his pokey little needles. Then the 3 of them were cozy. And who do you think came along next? Mr. Owl. Well, as soon as the hedgehog disappeared inside the mitten, a big owl, attracted by all the commotion, swooped down. When he decided to move in also, the mole, the rabbit, and the hedgehog decided, well, they're going to let him in because they did not want to argue with an owl with talons as big as his. So they made room. And then the next animal to come along was this little badger. See him hiding right there? Up through the snow appeared the badger. He eyed the mitten and began to climb in. The mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, and the owl were not pleased. There was no room left, but when they saw the diggers on the badger's thumbs, they said, we'll make some room. And they moved over, and they let in Mr. Badger. And then, who do you think's coming next? That's right, Mr. Fox. It started snowing, but the animals were all snug inside the mitten, and a warm steam was rising in the air. And Mr. Fox, who was trotting by, stopped to investigate. Just the sight of that cozy mitten made him feel drowsy. Fox poked his muzzle, that's his nose, in. When the mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, the owl, and the badger saw his shiny teeth, they decided to make some room and let him come in. So in he came. And then, who do you think's coming next? A big brown bear. A great big bear lumbered over. He spied the mitten, all plumped up. Not being one to be left out in the cold, he began to nose his way into that mitten. The animals were packed in as tightly as can be. But what animal would argue with a bear? Not me, said the mole. The mitten swelled and stretched and stretched. It pulled and it bulged so many times it was twice and 3 times its size. But Baba had done such a good job knitting that mitten held together. And then the tiniest little animal came along. He was no bigger than an acorn, about that big. It was a meadow mouse. And she wiggled into the one spot left and made herself comfortable right on top of Mr. Bear's nose. Oh boy. Then the bear, tickled by the whiskers of the little mouse, gave an enormous sneeze. Ha, 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 choo! And they all flew out of the mitten, sending the mitten and all of them up into the air. On his way home, Nicky saw a white shape in the distance. It was his white mitten up against the blue of the sky. Lucky Nicky had been looking for that mitten all day. As he ran to catch the snow-white mitten, he saw Baba's face. First she looked to see if he was okay, and then he looked to see if he had both of his new mittens. But when they got inside, she looked at the mitten. What could have happened? They will never know, but we know what happened that day. The end. I hope you like that story, and I hope you like some of the crafts that we have, little worksheets. You can cut out the pictures and paste them onto your mitten, and maybe you could even cut the mitten out and paste it onto blue paper. So it's like Nicky's mitten floating through the sky. Till we see you again.